Hello, everybody. Let me welcome you to another edition of the Im Studio series presented by the Austrian Cultural Forum Warsaw in partnership with the Unsound Festival. Our today's special guest is Rojin Sharafi.
Sharafi, yes.
And our host is Zosha Hoboska, aka Malaherba, who already created a session like this with us before. Hello. Hello,
Hello,
guys.
everyone.
Hello, Rojin.
Hi,
Hello,
hello.
Zosha.
Thanks for having me here.
I'm very happy to be hosting this session with a fellow colleague and an artist that I really admire. So maybe let's jump into a little bio of you. You originally come from Iran, but you've lived in Vienna for 8 years. You're a composer and a producer. You work with acoustic, electroacoustic, and electronic music. And last year you had an amazing record, Ernst Waiting to be Fed, that was released on Opal Tapes and Zapte Sote. And this year it was followed by another beautiful record, Zankar, on Zapte Sote. And this year you are also in the Rooster of Shape platform, and you've worked on a bunch of mixed media collaborations with other artists and being rather busy with a bunch of streams all over. Maybe as an introduction to your practice, I was thinking that we could listen to two fragments from the two different records to showcase your sound. I hope that everyone can see Rojin playing a fragment of her record live now. That was the live fragment with the material from your debut album. And I wanted to share one more short clip with the composition from the album from this year.
دیگر فکرت فکرم را نمی کند، به فکرت نمی شوم، نمی افتم، یادت از یادم پر وقتی یادم کردی، از من پرسیدی و خودت را نگفتی. میدانم که میدانی که میدانم، لحظه تعیین کننده کنون است و کنون میگذاریم که بگذرد هرچه شد. هر که رفتی رفت، سوار بر وسپا، با کلاه، با کیف، با خداحافظی، بی بوسه، بی بغل، بی چشمم برق زد و انداخت ساعت را که مثل مجسمه روی تختم، سفید بی حرکت خواب میدیدی، آرام بیدار چشمانت را نمیمالیدی، دستانت باز، سینه جلو، خمیازه کشان، نگاهت کلاف، من کنف، سلاحم غلاف، تو صدف باز کردی خودت را، گذشته‌ات را، با صبحانه خوردیم لبخندت را، با قهوه نار ما، صدف در ساحل، ساعت شنی، آرام خشکنان، پژواک خش بلند بردمان در کوچه، پارکینگ، روی پایت نشستم، روی پایم نشستی، خندیدم، پژواک شد در سرم، تکرارش عادت شد در سرم، فرود فراز نشه، دیدمت بعد از چند ماه رشه، دیدمت بعد از چند سال، دیدمت بعد از چند بار تصور دیدنت، دیدمت و محو شدم، محو شدی پژواک در سر، پژواک در گوش، گوشت را چشیدم، گوشتم را چشیدی، قبل از که محو شدی، محو شدم، شد اردو و تکرارش مکررش
Thank you. How does it feel like to see yourself perform, Rojin?
Yeah, that's it's not easy to see yourself, and but I think Yeah, the thing is, I actually edited this video with a friend of mine, so I saw the footages a lot, and I'm kind of used to see that video. But this is not something that I do. Like also the live streams or whatever. I don't like to see myself a lot, like performing and stuff. But yeah.
So my first or like more intellectual question for you is the question of heritage and working with the stories, the sounds, and then materials of where you were raised and born, and how do you work with this kind of materials, and also how would you reflect on your position as a migrant artist in Austria? How is it for you?
Mm. Yeah, great question. Heritage. Well, I actually don't see heritage as a full package. For me, it's like I try to form it myself. The aspects that I like, I try to keep it, and it's something very lively for me. And also the sound material that I use, I really don't like to use them as like in a traditional way. And I think it's more important for me to see what is relevant to my life, to my to also to contemporary time that we are living in. And for me, it's like folks music that I was collecting from Iran and also listening to them a lot is something very contemporary. And I would say traditional music is not something contemporary for me. It's very academic actually. But folks music is very contemporary because it's changing all the time, and it's in folks music there is lots of history, culture, anthropology, and lots of crazy things inside, and it's very ritual. There are a lot of ceremonies that shape this folks music, and it's very rich. And yeah, so this is something I find quite fascinating. And also because different regions from Iran, they have their own music, and they're so different. And first time that I actually listened to some folks music from southeast of Iran, I was totally surprised. It was so new to me, and it's something I like to explore, and I like to search for more. It's like some treasure that you find, and you're like um, super happy to find some fresh material. And the sad part is that a lot of musicians of folk music from Iran, they are a bit changing the music that they are playing. They're trying to adapt themselves to the more traditional music because it's a more prestige music, I would say, and more academic, and more for other people it's easier to hear, listen to. And there are like some dances that are kind of they are going to yeah, it's not, yeah, it's hard to keep them alive. They're actually, yeah, but yeah, there were like some stuff that I started actually with composing acoustic music and contemporary classical music. And I was very interested in structures and in process of music and in textures. And after like 3-4 years of composing acoustic music, when I go back to Iran and I heard those contemporary like folks music, it was so contemporary to me and so radical that it touched me a lot. And since then I started to collect cassettes and CDs and also instruments. Yeah.
How are the processes of creating these two albums different? Because the approach and in the material is very different. The urns, it's very narrative, but it has such a rich material from acoustic and electronic instruments. And I've also seen you performing it live, where you are not just triggering samples from a computer, but you're really very engaged with the instruments. And then your second album is so much centered around voice and poetry. So how are the processes of creating these two albums different from each other?
Yeah. Well, so the both albums, they are, well, actually albums, they have this definition for me, like capturing a specific phase of your life or phase of your musical aesthetic, or what the issues that are concerning you. And my first album is very abstract, I would say. Also, the way that I saw narratives were very abstract. Storytelling was, I wanted to approach storytelling in a very abstract way and to build a sonic village with different characters that are kind of developing in each track. And there is this huge meta form in the whole album, and there are like some elements coming in track 1 and then in tracks 8, and these kind of ideas of a big structure and a big process and stuff. And the second album, and back to the first album, I was observing this village as a third person. I was seeing something happening, and I was looking at as it as an observer. And in second album, it was also the focus on storytelling and narration, but not in an abstract way, but in a way that I was telling the memories. I was talking about the memories that I went through, and like some phases in my life, or also struggling with myself as this inner struggle, and perceiving myself as a second person, these kind of things. And it was for another phase of my life, and like my concerns were different. And in second album, I tried to not be an observer, but talking in first position, like talking in as a first position, kind of POV thing. And also the music wise, they were very different. The first album, I would say for all the tracks, I recorded the lines separately. And for the second album, I recorded all the lines together. I played them almost together, and the lines are less. And the first album is like a huge sound design, like lots of layers and lines. And second album, the lines are less. I also wanted to limit myself a bit. And the tracks are between 3 minutes, I think almost 3 minutes to 5 minutes. I wanted to have another approach to also a more, I would say, normal version of tracks, what we're used to it, rather than first album that was so free in form and structure. And that was also the idea behind of the album. So they were like, for me, they're super different, but of course there are some musical aesthetic that kind of connect these two albums together.
You also have a practice of collaborating on more like new media projects, installation, sound art, kind of stuff with other artists. Can you tell us a little bit more about your recent collaborations?
Actually, other art mediums inspire me a lot, like cinema, photography, literature. They're like my passions, and they have been. And now I have less time to be in touch with them. But I try to, with these collaborations, also to keep myself inspired by other artists, and also like for me it's each collaboration is like you enter another world of another artist, and you see their approaches to art, and it's super inspiring. And for each project I try not to have the same musical approach. So sometimes it's like we work a lot together, and we have this back and forth sending materials and ideas and inspirations. Sometimes it's more, I would say, solo narratives. It's like I have this idea and I ask someone else, what do you think, can we collaborate on this? Or like there is something more specific, sometimes super free. For example, I started to collaborate with an old friend of mine, which actually we made our first short film together when we were like 15, 16 years old. And she's one of my closest friends since then, and she's a filmmaker now and an architect. And we started to, actually it was a quarantine project. We started to think about, wanted to make a very short movie and like a music video, but a short one. But it turned to a bigger project, and that we didn't know what is the genre of this thing, and we called it what do we call it? Experimental musical or something like that, because it's not a music video, it's not an experimental short, but it's something in between. And the video, so it was not like I made a music and then she made a video, so it's a music video, and there is no narrations, no dialogues in the movie, so it's not an experimental short. And also the narrative is not a linear narrative. So we had lots of fun doing that. And I think in that project, we inspired each other a lot. Like I did something, I sent it to her, and it was a fun project. And yeah, the other one was a commission from a Rock Collective Festival. They asked me to do a soundtrack for a non-human video. And I collaborated with a new media artist, and he did a morphing video with AI generated data from bacteria, microscopic creatures, and these kind of things. And I did the soundtrack for that. And it was also a very nice collaboration. And for that, I started to do a long session of improvisation. And then I select some parts and I send it to him. And he already sent me the screenshots of this AI generated microscopic creatures, and but there were no motion, because it took quite long till he had the whole video or some parts of the video. And yeah, that was a nice experience. Yeah, I realized I didn't answer one of your previous questions about the migrating artists.
Oh yeah, I didn't want to force you, because I know it's like very personal, and sometimes it can be emotional or painful, so I didn't want to like corner you with my question.
No, it's actually a very interesting question, and it's very emotional, that's true. The thing is, I was actually ignoring the fact that I was kind of a migrating artist. It took me quite a long time to be confronted with this reality that it's it's a dramatic change. At first I wanted to be like cool and say like, no, it's not a big change, and it's super easy and blah blah blah. And I was like ignoring a lot of facts that, for example, I left all my friends and family and whoever I loved before behind, and I'm like starting to live somewhere else, and all other stuff. So, and I was 17 when I came to Vienna, so it was a difficult age, I would say. And the first like 2-3 years I was kind of ignoring this fact, and when I started to know myself better and to be more connected with my emotions and everything, it became more clear to me that that was a dramatic change. And also another thing is Iran is a country that also, if you want to be like not very connected, I mean, it's every country is probably like that, but some countries it's like whenever you read some news or you're asking your families how are you doing or whatever, it's like so tragic sometimes that you can't be ignorant about that, or it's part of your life whether you live there or not. And the hard thing is actually when you're living there, when it's, for example, some protests going on or some these kind of things, you can be active in the society, you can participate, so it's you don't feel like you are doing nothing, or you can be somehow positive, like kind of active. But when you're like abroad and when you're like only reading the news or like observing everything from that distance, it's really hard sometimes to live your normal life. And I was struggling with that in the previous years. And yeah.
Yeah, I can really relate to that. Being like having a hard time and observing what's happening in your home country and still, yeah, living like always having like one leg here and the other leg somewhere else, and living like your mind is always split between two places.
Yeah.
Do you find it like somehow comforting then to still be connected to at least the music of Iran and trying to incorporate it in your practice?
I was really lucky to know some people from the electronic music scene there. And actually it was 2018, I think, that an event like what is it called, sets experimental art events, I think. They invited me to perform in Tehran. They had this collaboration with CTM in Berlin, and they managed to organize a big festival in Tehran. And for me, it was like the dream that became true, like the best thing that could happen. And I was really at the beginning of my electronic music career. Before that, I was only like doing some electroacoustic pieces and more acoustic music. And actually some friends, well, back then I didn't know them, but they were like somehow heard some music from me. Sarah and Nima, they're living in Paris, 90 Antioch. And they introduced me to Ata Ebtekar Sot and Siavash Amini, and they're like the biggest name in electronic music, experimental electronic music in Tehran. And so Set invited me to play in Tehran. And it was kind of the first time that I played in front of 150 people, that they were like seated, all of them, because it's Iran. And they were super concentrating, listening to my music. It was in a theater in Tehran. And that was an unbelievable experience. And also to be in this festival and meeting all these people that I didn't know before, and now they're like my I feel like so connected to this community, and they're all like very supportive people, and also I admire what they do. And that was the first time that I met those people in Tehran, and since then we are all kind of in contact, and we are it's actually the community is very big, and I think the good thing about this community is it's kind of very inclusive. Last year, for example, there was a festival in Berlin. It's called Tehran Contemporary Sounds, and it was the first edition, and it became like a very big festival. They were inviting Iranian artists from Australia and Canada and like everywhere, and it was a big gathering. And that was also super nice to meet everyone again, and to feel this community. And it's I consider myself very lucky, because it's very important to have community, especially in, for example, experimental electronic music, that the community is not that big, and you can support each other in lots of ways, and mentally, and also from music point of view, and have collaborations, and there were like good coincidences happening.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. I also saw Antiote live once, and it was really powerful. Like also very connected to poetry, at least this set that I saw. Okay, so do you feel like showing us a little bit about your process, and share your screen, share some tricks and hacks?
Yeah, sure. Should I start with some multimedia project, or with more like music?
Whatever you feel like. We've just talked about this micro organism, so I'm a little bit curious about that.
Sure, I will. Okay, so I will play something at first. I will mute myself, and then I talk a bit about it. Okay, so the idea was because all these, I wanted to have to give this microscopic point of view and this like very, in a very small room and like very focused. And also the important thing for me was applying granular synthesis on all the lines that I had, and to have this like very millisecond, yeah, to sample everything in a very millisecond small packages. So I had some acoustic instruments. This is a line, we can hear it solo. And after that, it became like a longer breathing, but it's the same recording. Also, if I want to talk about the form of the piece, I wanted to have almost all lines from the start to the end of the piece, because for me it's a very repetitive piece that development doesn't mean a lot. It's something that is like happening, and the changes are not very big changes. So I wanted to have a circular kind of form. And there are like elements adding, for example, this setar. Also with this plasma distortion. And at the end, I brought this prepared piano recording, which like this. There are some sync points, but the idea was also not to have the whole video synced, because I didn't want to have the music always very parallel to video, but I wanted to have some sync points that makes everything like interesting for a moment, and then like audio and visuals are a bit parallel to each other and sometimes off to each other. For example, here I think, let's see. Yeah, so
I have so many questions. Well, first of all, what is plasma distortion?
okay, so let me see if I yep. This is this plasma pedal distortion that you can actually see the signal here through this plasma light. It's from a Riga-based, I think, collective that made those, and I love it. It's a very cool thing that I use a lot
Cool.
for different, also for Moog, for this Mother 32. I use this plasma distortion a lot in the combination with that. Yeah.
Cool. And did you use any granular synthesizers when you talk about granular synthesis, or were you just chopping the samples manually?
I use two different granular synthesizers. One of them is made by a professor of mine, Wolfgang Musil. It's called Grau, and it's a very interesting tool. And
Are
yeah,
there plugins or like hardware synthesizers?
they are. This Grau is, for example, Max for Live.
Mm-hmm.
I use it as plugin. And I also use the granulator from Robert Henke sometimes. Yeah, these are the main granular synthesizers that I use. Yeah, mostly.
Googling it now.
Yes. I
What
think just one thing. I think Susanne Electric Indigo. She showed us the plugin from Robert Henke during our session a couple of months ago. But I'm not sure if this was the same one. I think it's her husband, Robert, who's doing it.
Yeah, it's a amazing tool actually.
It is. It is.
It's so complex and there are so different knobs for everything. You can do lots of interesting stuff with that. Yeah.
Mhm. All right. And what are other plugins that you use in this project, or we can also move to another project that you want to, or is there anything that you want to add to this project, or working on the how you say it, microscopic creatures?
Yeah. The project it's called Morphosis, and it's about this also morphing, and I find it quite amazing how there are like these AI generated data can also be so visually interesting when they're morphed into each other. And they're not, I think I'm actually done with this. I can go to another project, a recent one.
Mm-hmm.
This is also a collaboration, but with a musician. So he sent me this the first line here, and he told me that he wants to have a collaboration track on his album, and if I want to continue it. The first, I can show it here. That was the main. That was the line that he sent me. And at first I wanted to continue working on this and like make a longer track. It's, I think, almost 2 minutes. And then I thought maybe I can play with it more and see what I can do. And so I can play a little bit of it, and then I will talk about it and the ideas behind it. So my approach was like, for me, the sample that he sent me, it had two parts. One part was this percussion instrument that we heard it a lot, with lots of delays and some lines, like more for, I think there were parts that we heard it like in 3 lines, and it, yeah. And this percussion instrument is called tombak, and it's a very interesting instrument, and it's very often used in combination with poetry, like someone's reads a poetry and someone else's play this percussion instrument. And the other part was this more ambient drone part that was a bit darker. And I tried to have also these 2 elements as the main elements of mine. One, these synthesizers that we heard a lot in the background, this microtonal synthesizer. And this is something I'm working on with a professor of mine, Johannes Kretz. And it has been an interesting project, because I started actually to record instruments in studio and to defamiliarize their sounds. And after that, I started to like buy some synthesizer myself. I have a Prophet and Moog and Korg, and afterwards I had this desire to build my own synthesizers that have like irregular clock, and they are microtonal, and so that I can explore more, and also sequencers that I'm a sequencer with irregular clock, and that was this project. And lots of lines that we heard here at this piece are from the synthesizer. So this is the part that I meant that is that it has this ambient. And for me, I tried to find an element that is kind of similar, but has like more room, and it's also, it gives some kind of impulse to the whole track. And this is this one. And this is basically a DFAM, Moog DFAM. And I really like this plugin. It's called Valhalla Über Modulation. I don't know if you know it. I use it like a lot. Also here, we heard it, this one. So it's dry, it's like this.
Okay, so this is what gives it this like watery almost texture. Really cool.
Exactly, yeah, yeah. And also here, it's without, it's like. Here it is. and afterwards, you hear it also. This line is with combination with the synthesizer. And all other lines are basically the synthesizer. Yeah, and this drum machine is also another project that I'm working on right now with Johannes Kretz. The idea behind this drum machine is also to have a drum machine that it has an irregular clock. So because I was working with electron analog rhythm, and basically my problem was also if you are trying to to bring more swing or randomizing your voices, you hear always these 16th pulses. It's very hard to get rid of them, and there are some tricks actually, but still for me always these small impulses were there. So the idea behind this drum machine is to have a drum machine that has an irregular clock, and you can have like patterns. For example, if one black note has value 1, you can have rhythms that are like 1.72 or whatever, like in also like and you can make very nice patterns actually with them.
And you code this drum machine in Max MSP or?
I'm making it in Max MSP, yeah, both actually the sequencer and the drum machine. They are like not finished projects. I'm still working on them, and it's yeah, they're like huge projects that takes months till you're like happy with the results. But I think,
of course,
yeah,
there's always so many parameters that you have to decide on, and suddenly like you open up this project or like this possibility of programming, you're like, okay, now I have to define what the circle is.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. And also the challenge is always to reach that analog sound or like more richer sounds. And
yeah. But a lot of the synthesizer sounds have this like very organic, almost like quality to it. A lot of them you cannot really distinguish if it's like prepared instrument, like a prepared piano, or if it's a synthesizer. And I really like this ambiguity in your music. Even in this clip that you showed about the microorganism, I know that they were supposed to be AI generated, but somehow some elements of your music really gave this creatures like breathing, like this, like life, this like organic, very pulsing that is not so easily measured with like BPM, right?
yeah. I mean, I'm very interested in electronic sounds that sound acoustic and acoustic sounds that sound electronic. That's like something that I try to achieve with the with the sound material that I'm like building. And also the microtonality is very important to me, because also when we talk, the nuances or dynamics or whatever we are doing is like in micro scale, not in chromatic scale. Sometimes it's in chromatic scales if you're like doing it more glissando or whatever, but lots of time it's like in quarter tone intervals, and I think it's also because I try to reach this speaking gesture with some of the lines that I make. Yeah, and this is also a reason behind using these micro intervals.
But it's also something that is like very present in non-European, I mean, like not classical Western music, like the scales that are so much more richer than the 12 tone scale. And also in, I'm sure it's like the same in Iran, but like in Polish traditional music, the metronome or the tempo that musicians used to play is much more connected to breathing and like the dynamic between the people. And it's not so easily transcribed onto like very rigid structures that our ears are trained to hear because of the music that we are exposed to, especially, you know, I mean, I love Four to the Floor, but it puts you in this certain framework of like looking for a rhythm that's very easy to measure.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm also like very into rhythms that are not that that they don't have like this easy pattern. And this is actually another project that I'm started to work on, to produce kind of experimental dance music to go like in this way. And this is very interesting to me because I'm also a techno fan. And but musically, somehow it's interesting to me to produce techno, like also with outboard devices, and to be in a cool analog studio and there to produce techno. But on the other hand, I think it's I don't know, for me it's like I'm searching for more complex patterns, and but it's hard to find patterns that are danceable and kind of complicated, and still like your body can connect to that. And it's also about our perceptions. Another thing is with like major minor scales. It's like this duality of, is it major or minor scale? And for example, in Iran, there are like dozens of different scales. And I think for a European ear, I played sometimes some like traditional music from Iran, and I asked my friends like, how would you describe it? And for them it was either major or minor, and most of the time minor. But it's actually, there is no this duality in Persian music.
Yeah, we need more of that. We need more diversity also in Ableton plugins.
Absolutely.
More different tonalities. Okay, then I was thinking that maybe we can open the floor for questions from the audience, because I think we kind of are like reaching the end of the session and possible Zoom focus in this Zoom times. Yeah, let's wait for some questions, and if they're not coming, I sure do have plenty, so don't be scared of silence. But while we wait for the first courageous member of our audience, maybe we can ask Rojin, what's next? What are you working on currently?
Yeah, besides this project, I'm actually collaborating with a collective from Germany. It's called Why Not Collective. And it's a collaboration that I really looking forward to, because also the concept of this collective is very interesting. There is no hierarchy in this collective. It's a collective of dancers, musicians, and stage designers, and programmers, and then the title of project is Sonic Storytelling, and we planned actually to have rehearsals now, but since I can't go to Germany, we're planning to do it all online. And the main performance is going to be also a VR performance.
Okay.
So it's completely new world to me. I'm going to work with motion sensors, with data that like there is this motion sensor that capture the movement of the dancer, and I'm going to work with these data. And they're also going to I think the platform that we're going to work is Unity. It's all in pre-production phase, so I can't really tell a lot about it, but yeah, so they're also going to capture my finger maybe movements and doing some stuff with it, and I'm going to turn into an avatar.
Oh, that's
This
so
is
cool.
cool.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's really cool.
that's nice.
No, I love Unity.
Yeah.
Someone asks, can you show a little bit of your synthesizer in Max?
Sure.
Thank you for sharing all of this. Like, it's really nice to be talking with the artist that's like super excited about sharing all this, top secret.
Yeah, the performance is going to be in March,
Right.
and I think in February we're going to work kind of intensive and that.
It's so neat. Usually the patches that people beat are like all over the place.
Yeah, this is neat because I'm actually working with this with Johannes Kretz, and yeah, I'm very lucky to have classes with him. And so yeah, there are like 5 LFOs, and this is the LFO master, and I connected it to SPAT to have like different movements, and now it's like these 2 mono signals dancing around, and this is the sequencer part. And here you can have different number of pitches. You can have like 10, 20, whatever. And this is the rhythmic pattern that I was talking about. And here is the BPM. And yeah, this is the envelope shaping part. And so
Oh, wow.
And this is the sound generator. I have now square, sinusoid, noise, and Chebyshev. I can have like, let's say, yeah. So here are the regions that this is like moving. The first one, the second one, third one, and fourth one. And here I can also like work with these formats of Chebyshev. And let's have we can have also a break. Break is -1 or minus. So
Amazing. Let us know when it's a plugin.
Please
Sure.
do. It's awesome.
So it makes me a little bit like, maybe I should have paid more attention to Max MSP classes, because I was always like, this is really not for me. And now I regret it when I see like a really neat patch like this. I'm like, damn it. Amazing.
Yeah, this is like also for me, it's like super interesting to work with Johannes and to see how he has like solution for different things and how he comes up with different solution stuff. I learned a lot from him, and
Yeah. Amazing. Amazing. Do we have any other questions? You've shared us. Okay. Okay. So what program do you work in your video, and what is it for an instrument that you were playing in with the bow?
Okay. So program that work in your video. That was Ableton. I had this Ableton, and yeah, and I had this performance. I had two MOOCs, this Mother and DFAM, and Prophet. And what else?
But you also had like an acoustic
Yeah.
instrument that you played with a bow.
Exactly. It's called Santur. I write it here. It's an yeah. I'm not sure if it's a Persian instrument. Maybe there are also in other countries in the region. You can find this instrument, but it's one of the main instruments in Persian music.
Mm-hmm.
And normally you play it with two sticks. And I'm not a trained santur player, but I use it a lot in different setups and different because I think it's you can produce different sounds with it, like a various sounds. Either you're like bowing on it, and I have a good microphone from Schertla. I recommend this a lot. It's a company from Switzerland. They produces microphones and pickups for guitar, for different instruments. And the good thing about it is I normally record santur with two condenser microphones from two sides. But for live performances, it's much better if I use this pickup, Schertla pickup, and I like the sound that this microphone can record.
So how heavy is your live setup?
Very good question. One of the main actually idea of this Max patch was for me to have less analog instruments with me, because that was something I was dealing with always, because I don't know, I really like to play instruments, like either keyboards or like acoustic instruments, and it's hard to carry them around. When I'm playing in Vienna, it's okay, but if I'm playing in other cities, it's always a challenge. Also, the santur, the case is kind of big. I can't have it on board with me. So that was always a problem. So my live setup is huge, and I try to minimize it. But maybe this Max project, when it's in the final version, maybe I will carry less and less with me. Yeah,
fingers crossed for you and for your back.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess it's a good moment to thank you and thank you our audience. Unless there's, can you write the microphone company in the chat, please? Shetler. Okay, got it.
And I have a question, if I can ask. Is it your voice, or on the last album there's so much voices, and language. I just guessed it's Persian, but I wasn't sure. It's also deconstructed. Can you say something about the role of the voice in your latest work, Rojin? Maybe.
Yeah, sure. It's my voice
Okay.
on the 8 tracks, and I wrote the poems last year, and yeah, so I tried to have different approaches to my voice in these 8 tracks, and to use like multi-layering or using like plugins.
Yes.
I was like searching for different different tools to defamiliarize my voice. And the language is Persian, and the good thing about Persian language is that it's a very playful language. The grammatic are not so strict, so that you can play with it easily. It's like you can bring the verb to the beginning of the sentence and still it's okay. You can
Not
bring
like
it
in
to
German.
the end. Yeah, it's actually the opposite of German, I would say. And yeah, and so it was very fun to write these poems, and I tried to have like a clear narrative line so that it's easy to follow. And yeah.
So you also expected someone to understand Persian while listening, because I was just hypnotized by the rhythm and by the layers, and it was for me a great sonical experience. But I don't understand a word, so I was wondering if when you work with languages which are not that common in our global world. I have this with Polish. Myself, I think sometimes just about the sound of Polish and how someone who doesn't understand a word will feel the language, you know. And this was quite yes, this was why I was asking you about. So is your record also released with a booklet with the lyrics inside? Because I just listened to it on Spotify. I have to admit, I don't have a cassette and nothing else.
So we are planning to release the poems, and also to have some merch and other stuff. Now at this time it's only physical and digital cassettes, and but I hope that we can also release it in other formats, and to have some other stuff coming out also with the text, because a lot of my Iranian friends asked me to publish the text. And but yeah, I think it's kind of easy for like Persian speaking people. It's easy to understand the poems, but yeah, not in all parts. I think when I'm like deconstructing the language, but in the other parts, yeah.
Okay, guys. Sasha,
I think
we're good.
we're good. We're full of,
Yes.
I mean, at least I can tell myself, like I've been Googling on the side, or the plugins, or the professors, everything you mentioned. I was just like,
I make notes. I have so many notes.
yeah, so I'm very, very inspired and looking forward to check some stuff out. And again, thank you for your generosity and sharing your process and tips and tricks, but also, you know, a lot of emotions that is connected to your musical practice. That was very beautiful to be able to, you know, experience your art like this, you know, really close up and personal.
Sure. Thank you for inviting me for this beautiful chat. I enjoyed it a lot, and yeah.
There's more things coming in the chat.
Yes, but yeah, thank you so much for the great insight into your world, Rojin, and thank you for such a great hosting, Zosha. This was it's great to see you on the other side.
Yeah,
And,
my pleasure.
And let's try to create maybe a small list so we can send it to you know, to all the interested people. If you want to get some extra information from us, just, I don't know, just write us. You can write me at afkwafmusik@gmail.com, or write to Zosha or directly to Rojin. I guess we are all quite responsive from time to time. And I would love to create another session like this with you guys, because I think there's lots of, we could talk for hours, but yeah, it's already out. It's quite late.
Yeah,
Ooh,
but
ooh.
for now, have a gorgeous evening in
thank you.
gloomy and cold Vienna, or wherever you are.
Yeah.
And thank you for joining us tonight.